Microsoft Dynamics 365 is one of the leading ERP software solutions in the industry today, but is it the right fit for you? I'm going to talk about that here in today's video. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients through their digital transformation journeys. And D365, or Dynamics 365 for Microsoft, is one of the leading ERP systems. It's one of the top systems in terms of market share, frequency of use, customer satisfaction, and just one of the best known ERP systems in the marketplace. So I want to do today is provide an independent and objective evaluation of the pros and cons of D365, as well as provide you an overview of whether or not it's the right solution for you. So to start, it helps to look at the history of Dynamics 365 and what is the evolution of the product. And Microsoft, you may well know, provides Microsoft Office, PowerPoint, Word, SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, other office productivity tools. Early on, Microsoft moved into the ERP space by acquiring other ERP systems. Systems such as Great Plains, Exapta, Navision were common systems that were meant to target different niches. Great Plains, for example, was a high-end financial and accounting software solution meant to compete with QuickBooks. AX was a solution that was commonly used by manufacturing organizations, distribution types of organizations. So those are just a few examples of some of the solutions that are the legacy products of Microsoft that eventually evolved into D365. So over the years, as Microsoft migrated to the cloud, as much of the ERP industry has over the last several years, they took the best of some of those solutions and moved that functionality to the cloud to create Dynamics 365. For a long time, Microsoft was managing these as separate solutions, but this is the first time where, for the most part, Dynamics 365 is the sole offering on the ERP side of things for Microsoft. So that's a bit about the history of Microsoft Dynamics, but let's jump into the strengths and weaknesses of the product. Now to start, it helps to get a simple overview of Microsoft Dynamics 365. There are two primary offerings that D365 offers to customers of Microsoft products. The first is Business Central, which is meant to be the small and mid-sized market ERP solution that Microsoft provides. On the other hand, you have F&O, or Finance and Operations, which is the bigger enterprise, more complex ERP offering within the D365 family. So you have two different types of solutions. Business Central is meant to be the more simplified, easier to use, easier to implement type of solution, whereas F&O, or Finance and Operations, is meant to compete with SAP and Oracle, for example, on the larger enterprise scale. So depending on where you are and what type of solution you're looking for, either F&O or BC could work for you depending on your situation. Now, some of the functional strengths of Microsoft Dynamics include CRM, for example. A lot of companies start off by using Microsoft Dynamics CRM, and then they eventually expand or evolve into using more of the ERP capabilities provided by D365. It's also particularly strong in financials, distribution, high volume distribution types of companies, and just overall integration of the different modules within the D365 offering are some of the common strengths cited by our clients that are using the product. Now, in addition to some of the functional strengths I just mentioned, D365 also has the advantage of having that traditional Microsoft look and feel. For those of you that have used Office 365 or Microsoft Office or other Microsoft products within your company over the years, you'll find that D365 looks a lot like what you're used to. Whether it's how you navigate the system or how you find certain things within the system, it tends to have that common look and feel, and that's one of the biggest strengths that the product has. In addition to having that common look and feel, it also has very tight integration to some of the Microsoft Office types of products. So for example, if you're used to your spreadsheets and trying to figure out how you can continue to work within your spreadsheet, either uploading information into D365 or exporting from D365 to Excel, it becomes a lot easier to do, and it's fairly seamless from an integration perspective. Another example is on the CRM side. It integrates very well with LinkedIn, which Microsoft also owns now. So LinkedIn integrates very well with CRM. So if your sales team is prospecting potential customers, They can integrate tightly in with LinkedIn to interact from a social media perspective and integrate that information between the CRM and between the data in LinkedIn. Another strength of Microsoft D365 as it relates to other ERP systems is their business intelligence, their analytics, their reporting. They have a tool called Power BI, which is a business intelligence / reporting type of tool that allows you to slice and dice information in a number of different ways and provides a very powerful analytical and business information reporting tool set that really rivals some of the best reporting capabilities in the marketplace. And for that reason, a lot of organizations that are diversified, they're multi-location, complex organizations, and they're looking for ways to get real-time visibility into the operations and fully understand data and information that's occurring within the organization day to day. Those types of organizations find that Power BI and the D365 solution are particularly powerful. So if analytics and reporting is something that's important to you and something that you're lacking right now that you're trying to get more of, Microsoft D365 can be a great fit for that. One of the biggest strengths of D365 is the flexibility and integration capabilities of the tool. When you compare Microsoft Dynamics to SAP and even Oracle and other products in the marketplace, you find that it has a lot more flexibility in terms of being able to configure the system the way you want it to. It's a matter of being able to configure workflows either through configuration or in the extreme cases where you really need to change the software, it also has a robust customization tool set as well. There's a dark side to that as well, which I'll talk about here in just a second. Now, the other strength along those same lines is its integration capabilities. So the architecture of the product itself is built on a .NET platform, which means it's an open architecture. It integrates well and fairly seamlessly or relatively seamlessly with other solutions out there. So if you're an organization, you know you're going to have e-commerce integration or you're going to have to integrate to regulatory types of systems or just any other third-party system, the .NET platform and the overall architecture of D365 makes that a bit easier than if you're using a product like an SAP, an Oracle, or other systems out there. So that flexibility and integration, if that's a value to your organization, that can be a very powerful thing. Now, one caveat to that is if you're an organization that's a large multinational organization, multiple locations, and you're trying to drive a certain amount of standardization and common business processes throughout the organization, that flexibility can actually be a challenge, and I'm going to talk about that here in just a second. Now, just because the product is flexible, just because you can configure and or customize and or integrate the system however you want to, doesn't necessarily mean you should. And what we find with a lot of organizations implementing D365 is that they run into trouble because of the flexibility of the product. That may sound strange given that flexibility is generally viewed as a positive thing and generally viewed as something that most organizations value, but to the extent that you have resistance to change or you just decide for whatever reason you want to change the software to fit your current way of operating or to operate in ways that the system doesn't normally handle, just because you can do that doesn't mean you should. And so organizations that do that oftentimes find that they overly complicate things, they create risk in terms of upgrades and integration and other types of issues caused by customization. So it's really important to recognize that in order to manage that flexibility and to manage the dark side of the flexibility of the product, it's really important to have strong project governance in place and to make sure that you have controls in place to make sure that you're not changing the software just because you can. So flexibility is mostly a strength, but it can also have a dark side as well. So it's important to look at yourself as an organization and your team and your competencies to recognize whether or not that trade-off is worth it. Now, like a lot of ERP systems that are just now making the migration or transition from on-premise to cloud offerings, not all the capabilities from legacy Microsoft ERP products like AX and Nav and Great Plains have been fully migrated to the cloud. So when customers buy a D365, they often find that they're missing capabilities or functionality that they may be used to or think they would be getting because they've seen that functionality in older Microsoft products. So I have no doubt that they'll eventually get there. They're continuously investing in R&D, continuously updating and improving D365. But in the grand scheme of things, it's still a relatively young product. It hasn't been around as long as some of those legacy products, and not all the capabilities are there. Two specific examples that we've seen with our clients along those lines of immature capabilities at this point, at the time I'm recording this video, is in human capital management, or the HR side of things, as well as product lifecycle management. So engineering-based firms that are product and innovation focused, that create a lot of new products, those PLM capabilities are not quite up to par with some of the other systems in the marketplace. And similarly, on the HCM side, the human resource capabilities aren't quite there yet in terms of what other systems offer in the marketplace. So those are just two examples of some of the areas that are not quite as mature as other ERP systems in the marketplace. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Now, one of the biggest challenges, if not the biggest challenge, of Microsoft D365 implementations is finding the right implementation partner. There are a lot of VARs out there, resellers, system integrators that focus on Microsoft Dynamics. And there's a challenge, or actually two challenges, that we see with the reseller network. One is that there is very little control that Microsoft has over its reseller network. Microsoft tends to take more of a laissez-faire, hands-off types of approach to the reseller network, and they let just about anyone operating out of their garage set up a Microsoft VAR shop. So for that reason, compared to other ERP systems in the marketplace, we find a huge amount of discrepancy between the great resellers and the ones that aren't so great. And there's, quite frankly, too many not so great resellers out there and implementers out there. So that's one challenge, is just finding the right reseller and implementer of the product. The second thing, which is both a strength and a weakness, is the fact that because the product is so flexible, there are a lot of resellers out there that have taken the core intellectual property or IP of D365 and they've tailored it for a specific industry or for a specific purpose. So that's great because it creates more of a niche solution for different industries. But the problem is now you're dependent on a reseller that's the only person that owns this IP. And if something happens to that reseller, you don't quite have the same backing of Microsoft as you might if you just use the vanilla D365. So on one hand, like I said, it's great that you can find different variations of D365 that might be specific to your industry. But on the flip side, it's difficult because now you're more dependent on those resellers than some might be comfortable with. So what does this all mean? Is D365 the right fit for you and your organization? It really just depends. What I wanted to do here today is provide you the strengths and weaknesses, pros and cons, and let you decide for yourself, based on those pros and cons, is this a good shortlist option for you? Is this a solution that you should be considering? What I will say is that a lot of organizations in the world are using D365 and migrating to D365. So it has a very large install base. It has the backing of Microsoft. It has that comfortable, familiar look and feel. It has the open flexibility and integration that a lot of organizations look for. So if some of those pros are things that are important to you, it could be a great fit, but you also want to consider the dark side or some of the trade-offs as well. So I hope you found this information useful. I also ask you to download our 2020 ERP report, which includes our top 10 rankings and ratings of the top 10 ERP systems in the marketplace. There you can learn more about Microsoft D365 as well as other ERP systems in the marketplace. And again, this information is independent and technology agnostic, given that we at Third Stage are not affiliated with Microsoft or any other vendors out there. So I hope you found this information useful. Please subscribe to the channel, provide any comments you have below, and look forward to chatting with you soon.